What's up, guys? So I have two fighters here. All right, a King of the Cage veteran and an LFA veteran. Again, I'm a UFC veteran. What would you change in the sport of MMA? What would you go back and make different? What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Inside Team Shorty, where I give the reality, the truth, and everything behind the scenes of the sport of MMA. So again, I have two veterans here, a King of the Cage veteran and an LFA veteran. Introduce yourself.
My name is Nick Angeloni. I fight 155 pounds, King of the Cage.
And I'm Arut Pogosjan. I fight for any promotion that will take me. So if you're looking for a fight, I'm ready to fight yesterday.
Calm down, calm down. So basically, you know, I just did their podcast earlier, and what is it called again?
Quotes and Chokes.
Quotes and Chokes, which, guys, I'll leave in the description below. Please check it out. It's actually a really fun interview. But one of the things we wanted to talk about was, you know, what advice would I give amateur fighters? This channel is mainly to talk about amateur fighters coming up and go, hey, big brother thing, you should probably do this. It would have worked well for me, maybe, and hopefully it'll work well for you. But we think about it, what would we do different in the sport if we were able to go back in time and go, you're 18 before you turn pro, like what would you change different?
I know exactly.
Oh,
I know. So I was 14. I was about to start high school. We were still illegal at the time, and I had a choice.
Arut's Armenian.
Yeah. So fun fact. He's not Mexican like me. He's Armenian.
So there was an opportunity for me to go to this all-boys high school. It's like a cadet military academy, and they had a wrestling program. In the high school, I chose to go to the public school, which didn't have a wrestling program. I was like, I'm not going with to a school where there's no girls. This is gay. I'm not gonna do that. But looking back at it now, my high school didn't have a wrestling team. Had I gone to the school, they had a really good wrestling program, and had I wrestled since like 9th grade, like my wrestling abilities, I feel like is good right now, but it would have been, maybe I could have been a college champion. I don't know, like the reality is I'll never find out, but if I could have started wrestling earlier, as early as possible, I would have done that. So
yeah, it's funny that you bring that up. So I played football since I was 4 years old all the way to my final year in high school, which, given I know why I didn't play in college. But it was crazy because after football, you know, winter was coming, all my friends would join wrestling. Everyone's, you know, I'm like maybe 9 years old, 10 years old. Everyone's like, Shorty, come on, let's go do wrestling. I was like, all right, cool, let me ask my dad. And my dad back in the day was just, you know, he was a big, tough guy, a little homophobic. So he's like, I was like, Dad, can I do wrestling? You know, I'm 9 years old. Obviously, I'll get better. I'll get, you know, really, really good. And he goes, is that the one where they wear the tights, the spandex? I was like, yeah, Dad, that's the one. He goes, no. Oh, that, and again, I'm quoting my father here. So he goes, oh, no, that stuff's for faggots. So I go to my friends, I'm like, that stuff's for faggots, you know? So it's just, that's just how it was. So I 100% agree with it, where I wish I would have done wrestling, you know, as a kid, because that was a big thing in high school. Was my school was very mindset related, where if you're facing a guy who was a state qualifier or a state champion or ranked or whatever the case may be, and you weren't, you were going to lose. That's just what they instilled in you. For some reason, that's just how it was. And most of those kids that were ranked, well, they wrestled before high school. They were wrestling since they were 9, 4, or 5. TJ Dillashaw wrestled since he was like 4 years old. Yeah. And look at the mindset he has today. He doesn't even rely on his wrestling. It's just the mindset he's gotten from it, from wrestling at the big stage.
Wrestling's life, though.
Dude, wrestling's life. And I 100% say, just like Dan Gable, it's one of those things that, you know, once you do wrestling, everything in life is easy.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. A lot of weight cutting. Weight cutting never gets easy, though. But what would you change?
I would enter more competitions. So when I started training, I started with jiu-jitsu, and I did competitions, but I would enter into competitions conservatively, right? Like if I just got my blue belt, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wait a little bit because I'm not sure if I can beat all the blue belts yet, you know. And I would wait, and I would jump in competitions that I thought I could win, and eventually I got up and I won worlds at purple belt, and I'm a brown belt now, and then as a purple belt I started fighting. But I would have done every competition that I could have done, and I would have jumped in every, like, kickboxing, smokers, all that stuff. I would wrestling too. My school didn't have wrestling, but if I had the chance, I definitely think that that's what I should have done. But just getting as much competition experience as possible when it doesn't really matter, right? And especially if you can get into a lot of grappling, that's another reason why wrestling is so great, is because there's a lot of pressure, right? Jiu-jitsu competitions, there's not as much pressure. It can be, it depends,
you lost
right?
that, go ahead, it's okay.
Right, yeah. Well, because I feel like
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu probably has a little bit of a better mentality with competing, because it's more just about let's go and learn, right? You win or you learn. But like wrestling is a little bit higher pressure, but without the brain damage, right? So like, if you can get into wrestling and get competing,
less brain damage. You still get some.
A little bit, yeah.
So based on your head.
Mainly if you fight the way I do.
Yeah. But if you can get into competitions and get experience, like performing under pressure and when it's important to you, that's the most useful tool you can have, like going into your professional career.
Yeah, the intensity in wrestling is, like, I think that's what we're talking about, pressure. It's the intensity that the wrestlers bring that jiu-jitsu guys don't match.
Yeah, and I think also, like, but you know, get into kickboxing, smokers too. You know, I don't recommend for like young kids to be taking damage to the head until you get to like a certain age. You know, but you see a lot of people who have a lot of wrestling experience and they can't take a punch. Like, they're not that they can't, they're just afraid to take a punch.
Well, they're definitely not used to it.
Right, yeah.
They're always blinking, even if a punch doing this, like,
Yeah, right, yeah. So you should have that, you know, get the lots of competition experience, but then also get some experience getting punched. You know what I mean? That's something that's like ingrained in our human nature to like just protect ourselves, you know, by like whatever means that we need, whatever means necessary to not take damage. And you have to get comfortable breaking that like deeply ingrained natural habit, right?
I didn't have that instinct when I first started. Like, I used to love getting punched in the face. It would fire me up. Like,
you were a psycho though.
Like that.
I
loved it because I didn't know any better. I didn't know that what brain damage was. I was like, the brawl. Like, I loved all about it. Now that I've studied medicine, I've taken biology. Like, I look at it completely differently. So now I get a little offended if I'm getting hit, like with more than a jab. If I'm like, okay, it's time to step it up to the next level, because you just know what's on the line. You know what you're putting on the line.
Yeah,
that's it.
And, you know, for me, there's two things. One is, you know, we talked about the competitions, we talked about wrestling. Fun fact, I lost a bet to join wrestling in high school. Surprisingly, it's going to be a shocker. Surprisingly, I didn't make the basketball team. So, I lost the bet.
Well, the bet was if you can't make the basketball team,
I had to join wrestling. Yeah. Thanks, coach. So I ended up joining wrestling, and the whole time I tried to be cut. I never was cut. Because I was a good athlete. I was naturally good at it because I did karate since I was 4. I had the hips for it. I knew certain movements. I was just a little more natural than the other
you
freshmen.
Came up with karate?
Yeah, I came up with karate. Shotokan karate.
You?
I was 4 years old, got my black belt after, I believe, 10 to 12 years of training, and you know, eventually did.
Oh, that's a well-earned black belt.
Like, it's not it wasn't just like some Taekwondo. No offense to Taekwondo guys, but Taekwondo where it's like, here, we're local park district. Here's a belt. Here's a belt. Here's a belt.
And whenever, like, I started with Taekwondo as 5 years old in Estonia, and over there it's completely different. I never went past white belt.
Yeah.
Like, I was waiting for a yellow belt for years. I never got that shit. But I came to America and like I gave it a try, and I was like, man, the kids I quit after a while because I noticed like all the kids were so soft, and like I saw like black belts like kicking like this, and I'm like, what is this? Like, this is.
And how would you pay for your black belt?
After 3 years, it's like a factory. They would just get their belts, and that's why I make fun of jiu-jitsu right now. Like, it's ground karate, like I call it, because like with their belt systems and everything, like seeing the Taekwondo system in America made me sick of like gis and belts. I was like now
jiu-jitsu is not the same though.
No, in jiu-jitsu is definitely more.
Well, it's like in Brazil, it's getting more popular. Like, that's why they were saying, what was it? Oh, he got his black belt from the Nogueira brothers. That's kind of like just giving it out like candy. And again, yeah, that's just some people, some schools, some whatever instructors. That's just business. But Bruce Lee, I think he has a quote where he's like, black belt, who cares? It doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah, it's just to keep your pants up.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm more inclined, like, I like the sports where you earn your accolades by your competition, your accomplishments in competition, like wrestling, boxing, Muay Thai. There's no belt. It's like what you've accomplished. Are you a champion? Okay.
Yeah, and it's and I do respect that, because again, there's some schools, and this is no disrespect to jiu-jitsu or any other. It's like it's the fact of well, because you see the little offended, but it's one of those things that, like, again, there are some schools that just, oh, hey, we're just trying to make money here. The kids are getting more motivated because they get a new belt or an extra stripe, stuff like that. Yeah. And there's some that obviously, you're not going to get your black unless you've done years of stuff. Like Demetrius Johnson just got his brown, and it's like, barely? That's freaking awesome. This guy's one of the best MMA fighters in history. But like I was saying earlier, for me, one of the biggest things I wish I would have done, mainly in wrestling, because I was trying to get cut, was I wish I would have tried. I didn't start trying until
How old were you when you joined wrestling?
So I joined when I was a freshman. I was 14, and I didn't start trying until I lost to make it downstate, which for high school, that's pretty much your pinnacle. So I lost by 1 point to make it downstate, and the only reason I lost is because I didn't have the mindset thinking I was gonna win. Again, my school was always like, you're not a state qualifier, you're not ranked, so you're more than likely not gonna be those top guys. And so that whole summer, I ended up getting pretty much another season. I got 50 off-season matches in. The next year I came in, I was beating guys that I was getting destroyed by, the year before. So I was like,
that gave you a whole new confidence.
Why didn't I just do this when I first started? I'm not saying I could have been balls to the wall every single day, but just having some motivation, some goal, like we were talking about in your podcast earlier, of just having the goal, having the checklist, and going forward and see what was going to happen next. And I didn't have that until later on in my career. I actually, when I placed in the nation for college, I didn't even know I was going to place. I had a couple practices that week leading up to nationals, and all I wanted to be was a national qualifier. I didn't have the mindset to place. And one of the guys was like, so what do you want to place? I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, you're gonna place, dude. You're freaking awesome. It's just, what do you want to place? You want to be a champ? Or you want to take 8th? And I'm like, oh, you really think I'm gonna place? Like, oh my god! And little I know, my very first match at nationals, I teched a guy, which is a slaughter rule in college wrestling. I beat him by 15 points, and I was like, okay. And then I beat 2 ranked guys after that, and I was like, oh my god, I'm facing the #1 ranked guy.
This is
in junior college.
Junior college.
And the only bad thing was, when I faced the #1 ranked guy, that mindset came back to me of, oh my god, I'm facing the best ranked guy. This is gonna happen. Whatever the case, I was number 8, he was #1. So sadly, in my mind, I was gonna lose. Little I know, I lost by 1. And at the end of the match, I was like, all I had to do was try.
Probably could have won.
I easily could have won. And I was like,
comes down to self-belief, huh?
Yeah. And then when I ended up taking 4th that year. Should have took 3rd at least, but I ended up just like, man, I've already wrestled 6 times. I'm exhausted. I want to go home. And then by the 3rd period, I was like, I could beat the guy, and it was just too late. But I wish I would have tried. And then for me, I think the second thing is, I wish I would have taken the advice people have given me. That's why I do the Inside Team Shorty of, I'm a person that, you learn through two ways, mentorship or getting burned, the experience. I'm sadly the guy that learns through experience. My last fight, I didn't really start focusing on mental side until I mentally broke down. And right? now I'm really starting to implement both. But it's the fact of, when it comes to the bigger things, sometimes you get prideful. You're like, no, I'm good, and then it happens like, I guess you're right, whatever, So
I've been in that situation plenty of times.
And that's what I'm doing now. It's like, I'm 26 years old. Given there's a lot of time for me, how old are you?
27.
And what's your record right now as a professional?
3-0.
3-0, and yours?
I'm 30. I'm 4-2. I'm 4 and 2 fuck-ups.
And shout out to him. He's actually fighting for the title of King of the Cage. Which, yeah. I wish I could have, given I'm not very technological with the computer, so I wish I could have the applause in the background. But overall, guys, it's crazy how, again, you have 2 fighters or 3 fighters now that are all not just regional veterans in LFA, King of the Cage, and Titan, but a UFC fighter as well, going, dude, the stuff we're telling you, almost every single MMA fighter relates to. I mean, how about this? We both talked about or all 3 of us talked about physically what we could have done. But for me, I wish I would have taken advice. Is there anything mentally you wish you could have changed back in the day to help you prepare for now?
You go first, man.
He's
like, question, man.
Because again, like, I wish I would have taken advice, because I look at like stuff now. Like, I've worked with TJ for the past like year and a half for some of his fights and some of my fights, and one of the biggest things was overtraining.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you don't run every morning? You don't do this? Like, I grew up running the whole Rocky thing, eating eggs, and, you know, whatever the case may be. I used to do it. It was funny.
Man.
I did it with my mom.
Disgusting.
Thanks, Mom. But what was it, salmonella poisoning? Yeah.
Salmonella.
It's the good stuff, you know? If you're going to lose weight, that's the way to do it. Anyways.
I was in the hospital for a week.
Yeah.
That was pretty bad.
I don't want to talk about it. So it's crazy how I was always doing this, like, oh, I got the time in the day, might as well do it. It's the fact of now I'm starting to learn, because you can doesn't mean you should. Mm-hmm. And the fact of, oh, you should train smarter instead of harder. Little you know, if you train smarter, it actually sometimes might be harder, but in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like I worked with Trevor Whitman about a week and a half ago, and just one practice, I learned more in some of the practices I've been for months. And I was just like, wow, this is 100% training smarter and not harder. And I've learned so much for that. Again, like the checklist, that was one of the things I was telling you. So one of the biggest tips I gave Arut was, after every single sparring session, you look at your 3 mess ups. You know, man, I got hit a lot in the face. I got kicked a lot, and I just
none of that happened.
I got
to me,
taken down. You know, I got taken down 5 times. Well, okay, you got taken down. Maybe you weren't moving. Why'd you get kicked a lot? Because you weren't blocking. You weren't faking. You weren't making them hesitate. All right, write it down. Oh, why were you getting hit in the head a lot? Was it all straight punches? Maybe you weren't moving your head. Was it going because you were getting hit with hooks? Oh, maybe you weren't just ducking. So I wrote it down, and I created a checklist. Once I completed
specific goals.
Yeah, specific goals. And once I completed it in that next sparring session, I checked it off, put something else in the way. And it was nothing more than 3. I didn't want to overthink in sparring. So I always had a goal when I went in there. But is there something that you would like to tell yourself possibly back in the day? Like,
I got 2 things. One thing I feel that I did well in the beginning, which I feel like I'd like to share, because I think that it contributed pretty significantly to whatever growth that I've made, and that is kind of going back to what you said, right? Whereas like when if something goes wrong in sparring, you're like, okay, this is what's happening and why, right? But don't be afraid to like ask why, you know, instead of, because there's been plenty of times where I'm like, okay, this is what happened. I could ask my coach or ask the person who beat me up, right? That's the best person to ask, you know, like, how did you do this? And I could do that, but in my head, I'd be like, well, I think I already have the answer. You know what I mean? Like, nah, I think I know why. And then eventually got myself to go like, okay, I'm just going to ask. And then I would be kind of wrong. Like, they would give me a much better answer, you know? Yeah. And so asking questions is kind of is what I'm getting at. So when if you go to practice and things didn't go well, if there's someone that's better than you, that's caught you in this, ask them, like, how did you do this, right? And like, what can I do to stop it? Because we all know the counters for our best moves, right? And like, that's why they're our best moves, because we've seen all the counters, you know? So you can say like, so if someone's getting you with their thing, like, okay, how are you doing this, and how can I stop it? And if you have a good team, if that person won't tell you how to stop it, you might not be training the right person.
Maybe I shouldn't train with that guy anymore.
Yeah.
It's a big competition.
Right, yeah. You know, so ask those questions. And then what I think that I did wrong coming up that I could have done better, if I could give myself that advice, is just take each match and each competition or each fight as that fight, right? Like, I used to have a mindset thinking that like I would look at all these great fighters, and I'm like, well, all these great fighters, I assumed, right, like I'm sure they were like naturally just amazing, and they probably never like lost fights in the beginning, right? And like, if I can't like win like blah, 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 and just like blow through the beginning competition, I'm probably not gonna win in the future. That's what I thought, right? And you look at guys like you, right, that you lost your very first was it your first amateur?
Yeah, first amateur.
Oh yeah, lost your very first one. Anthony Pettis, I think, lost his very first.
Anderson Silva, yeah,
he's got a few in the beginning. Yeah, he lost his very first pro fight.
It's Lomachenko lost his second pro fight for a world championship to create a record with man. That really sucks. But look at him now.
Right. Yeah. So I guess what I'm getting at is just be in that moment, right? Like, go and do your best in that fight, and let that fight be that fight, because you never. There's always going to be tomorrow. Like, if this doesn't go well, you can learn from that and grow from that and continue to get better. It's not gonna. Doesn't really have as much weight on your future as you think that it does.
I think you expanded on what Shorty was saying, and I'm going to expand on what you're saying. I think, well, all of us are saying is about coachability. Like, So when I was a kid, I've become more coachable as I've gotten older. When I was a kid, like, I don't know, 7 years old, whatever, when the coach wasn't watching, he was making us do push-ups. Guess what? I wasn't doing the push-ups. Or like, I remember, I started in Taekwondo at 5 years old, and 7 years old was boxing, then karate, then boxing again. And I would quit because I would like let factors outside of what I needed to do get into what I was doing. Like if I wasn't getting along with the coach, like after a while I would start dreading practice and not go. And then it wasn't up until I was like 14, 15 years old that kind of killed that in me, where I didn't care whether I liked the coach, whether I didn't like the coach, whether I didn't like who I was training with. It didn't matter. Like I had a goal and I was just striving for that goal, and I was gonna get there. That, like, I put all those things aside, and the most important thing for me came down to is how good can I get and how fast I could get there.
Mm-hmm.
So just changing the priority and
focus on the things that you can control.
Right, and becoming more coachable. Really, it's that. Like, it's taking full accountability of your destiny and, like, exactly like you said, controlling the things you can control. And I think the biggest thing is, like, our physical attributes, our physical gifts, how explosive, how fast, how tough I am. It's kind of something that you're pretty much born with, but how coachable you are. You could be more coachable as you get older, you know?
You know, it's crazy. So I'm gonna touch on both of yours. So you say ask questions. Sadly, and I'm saying this respectfully, sadly there are dumb questions. But I say that as I might not know it, but because you know it doesn't make it a dumb question. It might be dumb to you,
yeah,
but it's new to me. Like, yeah, there might be some embarrassment. It might be completely obvious to everybody else, but it's not obvious to you. Just ask. You might get a little embarrassed, but at least you're learning in the process.
And if you're embarrassed, you could low-key ask too.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Hey man, come here. Yeah. You know, and that's the thing is, you know, some people, and that's what people really most of the time are afraid of. They don't feel like asking because they feel it's obvious or it's already out there and everyone knows, but they're the only ones that don't know and they get embarrassed. At least that's one of the perspectives. There's probably much more, but it's the fact of like, oh, I don't want to seem dumb. I don't want to seem new. It's like, but you are new. Hell, I got tapped out. This is, you know, personal to me. I was rolling with Hani Yaya. He's a multiple-time world champion. I didn't know who he was. And we're sparring with Big Gloves MMA. He takes me down, sure, whatever. Dude tapped me out like 7 times. I think it was like 6 or 7 times in 5 minutes.
With big gloves on?
With big gloves on. Chokes. All it was nothing with legs. All chokes with big gloves on. I was so mad. I went to the sauna to like mentally cry. Like, it was upsetting.
It's the worst feeling when you get tapped with big gloves.
Well, it's the funny.
It's the worst.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
I've been there too.
The worst thing about it was I wanted to like be by myself in the sauna, like punish myself in the sauna, like whatever, man. And then Hani comes in to join me. I was like, damn it, I just wanted to be alone. Like, you know, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at myself. But then I asked questions. I'm like, dude, how'd you get those chokes? And we started talking, and then we started rolling. If we rolled for 5 minutes. Instead of getting tapped out 7 times, I'd only get tapped out once or twice, and eventually became 1. And sometimes it'd be none. Given again, I'm not trying to be the best in practice. That'd be awesome, but you need to be, you know, and that's something I'm gonna touch on in my next video. Is, you know, do you want to be the alpha male in practice? You don't want to be the best. You want to touch on different things, so where there's always somebody better than you, so you always have something to work on. And then for you, being coachable, like everyone at times, no matter if you know something or not, there's always something that you know specifically that you become prideful with. You know, you're like, you can tell me all about this, but it's like you're a tennis player talking about MMA. It's like, no, I'm not going to listen to you. But if you're talking to another MMA fighter that might be below you, or it might even be above you, or whatever the case may be, and they tell you something, you're like, no, you're not right, even though it's probably clearly and blatantly right. It's just pride. So sometimes you have to be coachable, swallow your pride, and go, all right, cool, I'll try it.
And it really comes down to being objective. Like, hey, does this shit work?
Yeah, and you
like, if it works, all right, let me hear you out.
And that's the thing is, and that's what it is. It's a lot of people in practice. This is why I do something my coach in college, Harry McGinnis, taught me was I try to drill. Like when I got, you know, TKO'd my last fight, I drilled for 2 months before I even sparred. Because if I drilled and then later on at that night sparred after the first round, yeah, I'm practicing what I drilled. But after that, I'm in fight or flight mode, and I just get back to what I'm used to doing. You know?
Yep.
So it's one of those things that I try to make it muscle memory. I try to be coachable. If this is something my coach tells me, I want to try it. If it doesn't work in practice, what's it matter? Who cares about being the best in practice? You don't want to be the best in practice. You want to learn. So if you lose,
as much as possible.
Yeah,
in practice.
if you lose, you go, hey, I need to do this right. What am I doing wrong? Ask questions. Get coached. If you can't, if you don't have that coach with you, then find someone. Ask one of your peers. Ask one of your teammates, and go, hey man, you're actually really good at double leg, for example. Can you teach me how? Like for yeah, that's really what it is. He's actually really good at double. But it's the crazy thing of, and I talked about this in one of my videos too, is all of us have the same skills. We have the same arms, have the same legs. You know, unless you're, what's his name, Nick.
Noel.
Yeah, Nick Noel. Only has kind of half an arm. But shout out.
He got the belt.
Yeah, shout out.
I rolled with him once. He's amazing.
Oh yeah, and then, but the thing is,
a bunch of times. For real? With one arm, yeah.
But it's
talking about crying in the sauna.
At least my guy had 2 arms. Shout out Nick Noel. But it's the thing of, we all have the same tools, but why are you doing it better than me? You know, it's like, why is your 1-2 working better than mine? Is it the rhythm? Is it the speed? Is it this? Is that? Let me talk about it and find out why. It's like, why does Jordan Burroughs have the best freaking double leg ever? It's like, yeah, don't matter. It's like one of those things. It's like, Jordan Burroughs has the best double leg ever, but why is he beating everyone else with a double leg when that's literally the first move you learn in wrestling? Right. You know, so it's you know, you figure it out. Actually,
speaking of, Jordan Burroughs came and did a seminar, and I learned a lot from him about the double leg. Like, the way he did it was so crisp, bro. Like, if you did it fast, if you did it slow, it didn't matter. He went through the same space, the exact same way, sped up, slowed down, and it was just the crispest thing I've ever seen.
He said he only showed the double for an entire seminar.
Pretty much.
It was like so deep.
There's so many nuances to it, though.
And he's still learning. You can tell he's still kind of. But anyways, it's you know, and that's the crazy thing is, again, you teach a whole seminar on double leg, and you can't do that. It's like, oh my God, there's so many different ways to shoot a double leg, or so many different ways to set it up, and the speed, the rhythm, the timing, again, I mean, how many times you face a faster guy, now you're not the faster guy, okay, cool, well, my power's not going to work if I can't hit him.
I've never experienced
My Radiants, man, they have everything. But it's crazy.
Yeah. And you'll find, too, is that if you ask that question, there is usually always an answer, right? Like, when you hear people say like, oh, he's doing this, like, well, it's just because he's more explosive. Yeah. You know, there usually is a technical solution, and it's just that when people say like, oh, it's just because he's more athletic, it's just because they don't understand the technical solution. If you ask that person, right, like, if you ask that person, how come you're beating me to the punch on the jab, like, they're not going to tell you, like, they usually won't tell you it's just because I'm fast. You know, like, they'll tell you it's, oh, because you have this tell, or you're doing this and I'm timing it this way, you know? Like, there's been a number of times where I didn't want to ask a question, or ask someone like, hey, what am I doing here? How come you're stopping my takedown, or whatever? There's been a number of times I didn't want to, but I've never regretted when I forced myself to do it, because as far as I can think of, every time I've ever done that, I've gotten a good answer and good information, you know?
I mean, you were just drilling earlier before we started recording. And we were just talking about how, because we know each other's game so much, it's for, like, he knows what I'm going to do and I know what he's going to do before we do it. And so we skip levels ahead, and, like, we're forced to come up with new ways to do something because each of us know. And then when it doesn't work, we ask each other, and then we grow some more.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
It's again, it's a crazy thing. Like you're saying, you train with somebody, you're forced to do different things. You know, even sometimes I have a mental block when I go home and train with the guys that, you know, I grew up with, and for some reason, it's not that I dumb myself down to their level. It's the fact that for some reason I just get back to what I'm used to doing. You know, only with them, but with somebody else, I'm like, oh, you know, doing all these crazy things. But you know, again, it's a whole mindset thing. But guys, is there something that you would change back in the day, or even as an amateur now? You know, is that something that you want to look forward to and go, no, I know everything? More than likely you don't. You know, think about stuff that you could get work on. And again, you have 2 other professional fighters here, not just myself, getting inside their head and going, hey man, this is probably something you should do as well. Big brother technique, and I appreciate you guys for being here. If you guys like this video, again, give it a like. If you like the whole series, please subscribe. Follow their channel. I'll leave the description, everything in the below. And actually shout out your social media pages, please.
You can find me on Instagram at Nick Angeloni 155. You can find me on Facebook. It's at Nick the Italian Stallion Angeloni.
And you can find me at Prime_time 9999 on Instagram.
I feel like he's like that spam email that you get. All right, this guy, nah. It's like, who is this? But again, guys, obviously follow my Instagram, my Facebook, my Twitter. Everything's in the description below. TeamShorty.com. I appreciate all love and support. If you guys like this type of interview style where I'm interviewing not just myself but other fighters as well, guys, please let me know in the description below. And is there something that you would change if you're a veteran fighter, giving advice to amateur fighters? Leave in the comments. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for all the love and support. And this was another episode of Inside Team Shorty. Take care, guys.
So